And welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. Joining me, as always, are the political junkies. First of all, William Beck, Mr. Straight-Laced himself. How you doing there, William?
Hey, good to be here. Good to be on set. I'm glad I wasn't the one kicked back to the control room this time.
Yes, that's right, because he's alluding to Mega Jesse, who's been demoted to the control room, or promoted. Oh, he's not even in the view. There he is. He just kind of
saw like his hat.
He'll be on set a little later because we got an important guest. Also, reading your comments, let us know where you're watching from, especially if you're in Sherburne County. If you want to send a Rumble rant, you go right to the top. And that's Bridget Williams. Bridget, how you doing?
Doing excellent, and we already have a couple people here.
Good.
Bad Hat, Dover Dan, and Tucker. So hi, guys.
Wouldn't be a show without those guys, right?
I know, it's
Every
true.
time. You guys will be very interested in our guest here. Sara, I forgot to ask how to pronounce your last name. Is it Forgues? Is that how you pronounce it?
No, it's French Canadian. You can do whatever you want.
Well, now that I know that your husband's from Canada,
yes.
how do you pronounce the name?
Forgues.
Forgues.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably should have been able to get that.
It's
Sara,
okay. Hi.
how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Are you?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of sucks to have you here for this reason. We have mutual friends. I didn't know that before actually talking to you the first time this morning, but you got a really interesting story, or I should say your son's got an interesting story, but as I was talking to you on the phone, you could just hear the passion in your voice, how much it matters to you because you're a mother and you don't want to see your son going to prison for an obscure 2A law. Like, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I'm a big gun owner, and I didn't even know this was against Minnesota statute, and we're going to get into why this is in Minnesota law, who passed it. You'll be interested in that. But first of all, Sara, tell us what is going on here with your son.
So my son Walker, in May of 2022, was target shooting with a friend in Sherburne County on private property, and there was a complaint from a neighbor, and which eventually led deputies to come out to the property and asked to come onto the property to just inspect where the boys were shooting, make sure everything was, no negligence or anything. Clearly could demonstrate that, and I apologize, I'm like not a gun person, so I'm gonna need you guys to like create a visual with what I'm trying to say.
Well, first of all, you're talking about Sherburne County, private property, guys shooting firearms. I'm almost wondering why the cops even came out there. That's a normal activity.
That's just a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. Yeah, and literally, I know this because I've shot in Sherburne County.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a rarity.
No.
So don't worry about not being a gun person.
Yes,
I get it.
but it was, lots of land, 40 acres. There were targets and, everything was good. So at some point, and I don't know exactly when, and I apologize, after determining, well, guys, it looks like everything is good here, the deputy asked to just see what they were firing. Mm-hmm. And it was at this point that Walker, understanding federal law and regarding privately made firearms, and understanding that Minnesota had no laws restricting privately made firearms,
right,
as a simple Google search would let you determine that.
Right.
Showed him. And
at this point, the sheriff's deputy is not hostile towards him. I mean, he's been called out there because there's possibly something going on there. People are inappropriately shooting firearms. They find out that's not the case. There's a range here. They're shooting at targets. Yep. So not hostile, but just maybe friendly, asking, hey, what are you shooting here?
I think that is actually the tenor of the inquiry, to look at the firearms. And
but you would understand. I mean, if I was talking to somebody, I'd probably be curious. Hey, what do you got there?
Yeah. And Walker wanting, and, his friend wanting to obviously be, respectful and compliant, and, being members of the community. We have, our high school uses the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office for its liaison officers. Walker's very comfortable around law enforcement. Was like, yeah, I'll show you what I got. And I will say, as a 20-year-old, I think he was even just like a little proud of like what he had made, and so he showed him, and he's, took it apart, I guess, I don't know why, and then determined that there was no serial number, and informed Walker that this was against the law, at which point Walker cited federal law and, assured him, I made these and they're not required to have a serial number. Well, what do you mean you made them? And he went through the process. It was a lower 80. Is that, yeah.
Yep.
And he said, I'm pretty sure these are still legal. I'd like to get another officer out here. The second officer, from my understanding from conversations with Walker, was a bit more, he was ready to arrest him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for just a firearm, any of us could be shooting an AR-15 style firearm, not shooting it inappropriately, not hostile towards anyone, shooting at targets like all of us have done many times, but because it's made by him, doesn't carry a serial number, they're getting hostile and ready to arrest a young man and basically ruin his life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And he actually hid it from me for like 6 weeks because he thought it would go away. And he was like terrified to tell me.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And so all of a sudden he's like, I'm waiting for something in the mail. Can I get the mail? What time does the mail come? You know, all this kind of, and then that is how we actually found out that he was officially charged.
So from the time, and did they detain him for just a little bit of period?
It was a couple hours.
Hours?
Yeah, it was a couple hours on the property.
So detained against his will, he couldn't leave.
My understanding, and please understand, this is just my understanding, is that there was a feeling on Walker's behalf, even when he was ready, because when the deputy had come out, they were done shooting. Walker was in his vehicle getting ready to leave. Everything were in its cases.
Yep.
And he was getting ready and noticed that a deputy was essentially pulled up on the road, no lights on, and just kind of sitting there. So, he's just kind of waiting like, well, what do I do? Do I go out? Like, what's going on? And I believe at some point, at least the first or the second, almost kind of blocked in the driveway. So there was at no point Walker could have left. And after the point that the initial deputy had determined that there was no negligence or anything like that, asking to see the firearms, I mean, there was no probable cause. Nobody was going to be arrested. There was nothing that, I believe he probably could have said, am I being charged with something? No, then no, I would, prefer you not look at my firearms, which he's just not going to do. He's a 20-year-old.
And it's sad, but that's kind of what you have to do these days. You'd like to think everyone in law enforcement is on your side. You're a good citizen. But this is the exact reason why a lot of people say you don't talk to them ever unless you have a lawyer, because of this very incident.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad because what has your son done?
Right.
It just proves how responsible that he is. That he's willing to talk to the officers, show them the firearms, do all that to try to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, did they confiscate the firearms that day?
They did. They did that day. They took the firearms.
And so he's never had possession of these firearms since then?
Correct. None.
I mean, shall not be infringed. I mean, I guess...
That's taking the guns before due process.
Of course, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so... Basically, from the day that he's detained temporarily, and then his firearms are confiscated, it's 6 weeks until he hears anything from the courts.
Yeah, it's and he tried calling calling the county to just try to get information. Walker and his dad have an acquaintance, but a personal acquaintance relationship with the sheriff. Going back to when he was initially elected as sheriff to Sherburne County. His dad and myself actually at the time worked very closely with him to get him elected. And so Walker and his father reached out to the sheriff on his cell phone and was like, this has happened, and he just, well, it's the law. It's the law. And we're like, what law are you talking about?
Right. Let's talk about this law here.
Okay.
Can you pull up the Action for Liberty article, Dawson? You can go to actionforliberty.com. We just posted this article, and we'll definitely follow it up. And there's a picture of your son, Walker. It was a baseball player, by the way. Still plays amateur baseball, right?
He does. Yeah.
Mechanic, also going to school, graduating in July. Works as a Ford mechanic.
Correct.
So
yes.
I know we're taking my F-150s now. F-150s is if there's a plural F-1. What do I? We got a couple Raptors in the garage, with all that wealth that we're getting from doing The Truth Hurts, I guess.
There you go.
Maybe someday we'll have a bunch of Raptors in the garage. That's probably his dream truck, isn't it? You have no idea, do you?
I think
It
it's
is. I guarantee
probably
it is.
it's somewhere on the list.
He's a Ford mechanic. He
I-
drives trucks. He wants a Raptor.
He cannot bring any more vehicles home. Like, we're no more loan donor cars and parts and
Hey, do all of his vehicles have a VIN number on them though?
yes,
Okay, good, because that's another state statute.
yes.
We have a question from Dover Dan. He says, did they take all of his firearms or just the one that he made?
2, right?
He had 2, and they were all that I believe that is all that he had
Okay.
with him.
Yeah, that's a good question. Scroll down here. We have the actual bill. So it's 609665. Go ahead and click on that link there.
667.
667.
Yes.
Oh, it is 667. We
Yeah.
just typed it wrong in the article. Okay, so the link is still good, even if it
Yes.
says 665 on
Yes.
there. What they're saying is that, and we'll get into a little later in the show how this became law. I need to pull this up on my computer because I can't barely read that screen. But essentially, it's on the third part of that that they're trying to prosecute him on. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. 609.667.
Okay, so 609667, and it says, whoever commits any of the following acts may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 5 years or to payment of a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. And number 3 is receives or possesses a firearm that is not identified by a serial number. And then it further says, as used in this section, serial number on other identification means the serial number and other information required under United States Code Title 26, Section 5842 for the identification of a firearm. Did you guys know that was on the books in Minnesota? Did you know that? Because that's not against
No.
federal law. Did
No.
you know that?
No, we didn't. And even
I was actually talking to the audience, but
sorry.
obviously
I
you didn't know it. Cross that one off too, that you didn't know that. But obviously you didn't know it. Your son called the ATF ahead of building these firearms to check to see if it was against federal law, right?
because I didn't know anything. I don't know nothing about guns. And when he told me this, I was like, I don't know about this, Wacky. Let's, So he even did his due diligence and just to make sure, and called and spoke with somebody at the St. Paul ATF office. And they were very deliberate in saying, where we only speak to federal law. You are covered under federal law, but it is not to our knowledge that there are any laws in Minnesota restricting privately made firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I actually
And you would
called,
think that'd be the expert.
yes, and I actually called them as well and received a call back after I found out about when he finally told me, and was told, almost exactly the same thing.
So he gets this thing in the mail from the courts, and is that when he
So
came clean?
he actually got a letter in the mail from an ambulance chaser that I found saying, Walker, I see that you've been charged with 2 felonies in Sherburne County.
Jeez.
And, so then the conversation comes up and then it was, I had money, in savings for a second year of college. And I'm like, all right, let's walk me through this,
Yeah.
explain it to me, started doing my own research. And so
I mean, what's going through your head? Right away, it's a felony, so you assume that there's possibly prison behind this. And
I was freaking out. I was so convinced that he had done something wrong that he wasn't telling me, because I'm like, there's no way this is happening.
right, because
What
it seems
actually
so obscure.
happened?
How could this be the thing that would throw him in prison? Right?
Right.
He's hiding something, right?
Right.
And then you see exactly the charges, and
the-
that's all it is.
But if you do a simple internet search, just make it as basic, are, privately made firearms Minnesota, or, the slang term for them, if you want to, you will see that even the most anti-gun groups have a list. Wikipedia will tell you that there's no restrictions. And the most, liberal anti-gun websites list states with restrictions on the books, and Minnesota is not listed. Furthermore, they go on to say that Minnesota, around the topic of ghost guns, has no, I know it's like a dirty word.
No, it's not. None around here.
Okay, well, I just think it's nonsense, and in this case, yes, it's that there's no restrictions in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because obviously, we were chasing down this story here. Thank you to a lot of our fans sending this to us, Twitter and stuff. So William started hunting down the story. You were really quick to get back to him. So I chatted with you the first time in my life at like 10 this morning.
Yeah.
And so obviously we got to validate the story because there's a journalistic standard here, and that's how I found out we had some mutual friends who spoke very highly of you. And then we looked up Giffords. What's the Giffords organization?
Yep.
Gabby Giffords, a huge anti-gun person.
It was the first result that came up.
Yeah,
exactly.
They acknowledge that this isn't against the law. It is a I am shocked a deputy even knew this. Like, it's so bizarre. It's something's fishy about it. In fact, let's move on to the storyline here. So obviously you find out about it. Walkie, as you call him, comes clean.
Yeah.
And then mom's on my side because I need a legal team at this point.
Yep.
What happened from that point? Because eventually you're going to be in front of the county attorney, and I don't want to get ahead of the story, but there's a very interesting thing that they offered and then revoked.
So we hired a private attorney, well respected and well known in the criminal defense, and especially in Second Amendment issues. Walker had reached out to him initially in June, and he was just like, "What? No way! No way! There's no way this happened."
Mm-hmm.
So he had already initiated contact with them, so that's who we went with. He had his initial hearing in August, where the judge at that point, noticed like, okay, well, so this guy's been charged with a felony, and we don't have any fingerprints. We've got nothing on him. We should probably do those basic things. So that was the extent of that hearing. The next hearing we had was a contested omnibus hearing, where we were going to fight the charges as unconstitutional, and then asked for dismissal, for lack of probable cause.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in the middle of that, the judge that he had initially had assigned to him resigned abruptly. I mean, to the point where like Walker and I showed up for court and there was no judge. And we were told by the court administrator that she had resigned on the weekend before, the couple days prior, and that it would be continued. So he was reassigned to
And you don't have an explanation for that?
We do not. She was set to retire sometime by the end of the year. I don't know. And not just not like I don't want to take this case. Like, she resigned from the bench.
Oh, okay.
Like, she was done. Like,
all right. So you don't think it has anything to do with this case? It's just kind of a coincidence then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks. Unfortunate for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So a new judge gets assigned then.
And he was a senior judge, meaning that my understanding is he came out of retirement essentially to help during the pandemic with, the backlog of cases. But he was getting ready to go back into retirement when he was given Walker's case. We did not have any in-person hearings. We initially had, I believe, like an hour scheduled for an in-person contested omnibus hearing. Walker's attorney was prepared to bring in gun experts on, unserialized firearms. Now, understand that an unserialized firearm is not necessarily pertaining to privately made ones. Firearms prior to 1968, when they were, that was when they were required to have serial numbers, are still legal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have, this is a hunting state.
Yeah.
So you got to assume that there's a lot of people here who have, great grandpa's deer rifle in their collection. And if it was pre-1968,
I'm not gonna make a comment here. Okay. Go on.
If it was pre-1968, if people want to go check and just if they're curious, there's a good chance that they are in possession of a firearm that has been in their family that does not have a serial number. And based on what the state is trying to do, it is a felony to be in possession of it.
It's just, I don't want to say something that I'm thinking of right now, but I'm sure a lot of you guys at home are thinking the same thing. That is absolutely asinine. I think even in the case of building a new firearm to require that, because the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. You cannot infringe on a person's right to keep and bear arms. That's the big infringement. but let alone a weapon that's been, or a firearm that's been passed on for years. It's just utterly stupid, and that's the law. That's apparently on the books that none of us knew about.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this judge. We're at court here. Continue on.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
we had a contested omnibus hearing. That instead of being an hour-long in person, it was a 7-minute Zoom meeting, and then everything was to be emailed by the defense and the prosecution to the judge to review. So obviously, that was it. And he disagreed with our argument and did not dismiss the charges, and then went back into retirement. And so now Walker is on his third judge, who was appointed in February to fill the vacancy of the initial judge that had resigned. And so in the process of that, given the nature of the election results and just we really began to argue with, began to consider taking the plea that had been initially.
Wait, so when you're saying election results, what are you referring to? County election results?
Just no, the state.
Statewide? Okay.
Yeah, because initially.
Because it's become more anti-gun in Minnesota?
And yes, and if
Okay.
there was any hopes of cleaning up this statute,
Yeah.
I truly believe that the intention was to just basically back up the federal statute on which guns which guns require serial numbers, right? And we all know that. If it had one, you can't take it off. It was just poorly worded, and it's my belief that it is now being used as a clever way to essentially go after all unserialized firearms.
I love how you don't attribute malice to these politicians, because this is 1994. This is the same year that they passed the
Yes.
gun ban, the Clinton gun ban. So I would attribute great malice in what they were up to in 1994.
Well, it was passed in 1994. Technology has changed, and it hasn't really become an issue statewide until now.
Right.
I don't believe that was the intention. That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
This
Yeah,
doesn't.
they certainly didn't have the foresight to see ghost guns.
Right.
But
So he was.
or this explosion, because essentially
Yeah.
when the Clinton gun ban expired, then you have a lot of people that are buying these. I mean, I did in 2004, like right away. I bought an AR-15, and unfortunately with that boat crash, it's at the bottom of the lake now. But I did buy that, after that gun ban expired. Also, the first thing I did at 21 was buy a handgun because I could do it.
Yeah.
That's how much of a gun guy I am, by the way. So you mentioned a plea deal. Let's talk about that. What was the plea deal?
Yes, and again, this is just my understanding, not fully, being able to interpret legal jargon, but he was initially right away, like right out the gate, was offered a plea, drop one charge, plead guilty to gross misdemeanor to one charge, 2 weeks in jail, which was silly, but okay. 200 hours.
Oh, I didn't think you said that to me before. So he'd actually spend some time in jail then.
No, that was the initial plea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
sorry.
All right.
The initial plea was gross misdemeanor, some community service, some jail time, take a firearms class, which
She's a hunter. He's probably taking that, right?
right,
Gosh.
right.
Wow.
And so we just were like, no, we're not going to take that. This will get dropped.
Yeah.
We'll play it out, and it'll get dropped. So when it did not get dismissed, and we were looking at our next options, which were trial, we revisited the plea agreement.
Mm-hmm.
At which point the prosecutor amended her plea agreement
Who's
to
the prosecutor in this case?
Jennifer Clemens.
Okay, Jennifer Clemens.
I think so.
Sherburne County Attorney's Office.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. She said, okay, well, we'll get rid of the jail time. Again, gross misdemeanor, 100 hours community service. We went back and forth to the point where like Walker was even like, do you think I can like coach youth baseball as community service? She's like, I don't care what you do. Like there was dialogue back and forth, and it was very clear that this was going to be a gross misdemeanor, which even not that has implications for our family, but it's doable. Still pretty crazy because we still did not believe that the law was clear and that he had, violated the law. But what other options did we
Do
have?
you want to mention why it's got complications for your family?
Yeah. So my husband is Canadian. So
We won't hold that against him here. Well, actually, maybe we shouldn't because he escaped Trudeau and came to America. So,
yeah.
Props to him.
Yeah.
So
Is he
well,
a trucker, by the way? We like Canadian
he,
truckers.
he was like when he was younger, yes. But we actually, I still reside here. I have a home, in Becker, and then we have a home in Ontario, a little farm that we're restoring, and so we actually maintain separate residency, and then I go back and forth, and we'll just continue to be here because my kids are here, and I'll see them. My youngest will be a junior, and then hopefully they don't fail to launch. Although Walker's staying at home with me, I'm starting to worry.
I know, I gave you crap.
I know.
Because at 18, I'm booting my kids out of that house.
I thought that was the plan.
Watch how this works out for me. Everyone's going to laugh. We'll see.
No, I was the same way. And then I was like,
Yeah.
but you don't want to just stay with me forever? So we go back and forth. And prior to this, Walker hadn't been up to, none of my kids had been up to Canada because of the pandemic and not having the vaccine. I was initially not allowed into Canada for 8 months, and then I got the vaccine. I'm like, I don't care what you do. I don't care what I need to do. I'm gonna, go see my husband. But there's no way he'll get into the country. And he's got step siblings there. He's got grandparents there. He's got aunts and uncles
And
there.
is it the rule that because he's a felon, or are you just saying pending felony
As long
charges?
as he's charged. So I checked with CBSA, which Canadian Border Services, and he cannot even approach the border with the charge. He would be turned away, and should he try again, he would be facing a potential ban. So we're not even going to try it.
So you're saying just him being currently charged,
Correct.
right?
Cannot get
Now,
into Canada.
if he's actually formally charged and convicted, then I guess I don't even know.
He'll never step foot in Canada. There's
Yeah,
no way around it.
Huge ramifications for your family.
Correct.
Interesting stuff.
Yep.
Gross misdemeanor. It sounds like there's some gray area then behind that one.
So, and even him taking the gross misdemeanor, it's something that down the road, it's kind of like you can't even get into Canada if you have a DUI. There's like restrictions. So Canada's very strict, but I even told him, I'm like, just take it. I'll work it out. If it if this keeps you out of jail, take the gross misdemeanor. Don't worry about, me and Canada. We'll do it. So he accepted the plea, signed it. So again, this was not something that we proposed. This was the prosecution's plea offer to us. And he signed it and even went so far as to begin the pre-sentencing investigation. He spoke with people at the Sherburne County, just, making sure okay, what are we gonna, what kind of probation and stuff are you gonna do? And heard nothing and nothing and nothing. The sentencing hearing was in April. And then we were notified by his attorney that the prosecution won't sign the plea that she offered because she wants him to plead guilty to the felony. And then after, I guess, probation or whatnot, it would then be a downward departure to a gross misdemeanor. But the felony would be there. So he would have...
that sounds like someone's trying to build up their resume, That's what it sounds like to me. First of all, it's just really goofy that a deputy would know this obscure law and then detain someone and then bring those charges to the county attorney, and then for them to offer a plea and then renege on that and then to plead on a felony charge. That's what kind of crosses my head. And we'd love to hear from you guys if you got some thoughts here, because it's so bizarre. This seems like with crime just running out of control in Minneapolis and St. Paul and Twin Cities and actually across the country, and this is what they're spending time on?
Right.
And by the way, what does that matter to Sherburne County? Nothing, because they don't, that's not their jurisdiction. But I can only imagine the drug-related stuff going on in Sherburne County.
Right.
That is probably more important and a bigger
Right.
danger to the population.
Right.
Bridget's too polite to interrupt.
No, I
but-
was going to just right now. Then my,
We got a little
spot.
relay there.
We have a couple of rumble rants. Yeah.
In the interest of your son Walker, we're doing a little baseball signals here. So he signaled from Bridget. He sends it to me.
I don't know if he was trying to signal, but he did text me. But I had seen them. They came in a while ago. Napkinator79 gave us $10, actually you, for the Raptor Fund, he said.
For the Raptor Fund.
And then
By the way,
have,
save some of your dollars because we're going to put a Gibson and go to their legal fund here at the end, and then we'll post a link in the description of the show.
Actually, yeah, I'll send that to Dawson here.
Okay, and then K-Wall for Life is here and gave us $20 and said
Hey,
happy
K-Wall.
50th show team.
Is K-Wall doing that for T-Wall as well here?
Oh, probably.
Well, we love our people. Like some of them, we don't even know their names because K-Wall, T-Wall, how would you know which one it is? But they're always watching. It's the husband and wife.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
always get them mixed up, but they like to do the rumble rants.
Yeah.
So we've got the best audience on the planet. Love
And
these
then
people.
we have Debbie Z says, seems like he's got a good mom fighting for him.
That's why we wanted to have you on the show. I was like very impressed after talking with you. I'm like, because we had this whole 50th show planned, and William was really insistent on bumping it, and I was like 50-50. And we got off the phone. It was about 2 minutes. We decided, yeah, this is what we got to talk about today. And I hope you guys enjoy that too, because we thought this. We'll still talk about what we want to talk about, the rhino problem. And a little foreshadowing. This is why this thing became law, by the way, which is really interesting.
T-Wall is just lurking, she says.
T-Wall's lurking.
Yeah.
But Tucker's being quiet today?
No, Tucker,
No.
he said, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yeah,
and he said some other comments.
Yeah,
in there
think
too.
about the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia. A regular, at the term regulate, means to make regular, right? A militia. Made of who? We the people. And so in order to have a militia that could repel a tyrannical government, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, because you could not form a militia to repel a tyrannical government. So if they can go around and say, oh, you don't have a serial number on your firearm, that is against the whole spirit of the Second Amendment, which, by the way, only follows one other amendment, which is religious freedom and freedom of the press and freedom of speech. Very important to the founding of this country. And it's just a clear violation of the Second Amendment here.
Yeah.
And by the way, what authority did state legislators and the governor ever get to enforce this? That was never a power given to him in the Minnesota Constitution. Certainly is against the federal Constitution. So I don't mean to go on I know you're a constitutional scholar as well, Sarah. So
Oh my
on top of your knowledge of guns,
I'll add it to my list of things to plunge into at 2 in the
you're
morning.
going
when
to.
can't
I
sleep.
bet you will, because
Yeah.
now all those times you're like, oh, Constitution's so boring. Now you're like, oh my God, these guys knew what they were talking about.
Well, and like I think I mentioned to you, I'm not a gun owner. I have been ambivalent.
I'm not either, by the way. Tragic lake incident many years ago.
Those boat accidents
But,
are
yeah.
all too common.
Oh, no.
Terrible.
But I've just been ambivalent in feeling like it didn't apply to me, or so, I'm just like, okay, well, it's not an issue that I feel I need to spend a lot of energy on. I'm not a gun owner, and okay, somebody asked my opinion, I'll probably change the subject.
Well, our mutual friend says you might not be a gun owner, but your son's red-blooded American. So
Yes, they are. Well, exactly.
driving the big
yes.
trucks to school and the kind
Yep.
of people you'd want on your team.
Yeah.
That's how he put it.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Glenn Cotton, I think is how you say his name. He says, your son, I think this is the lawyer that chimed in last time actually, said your son should consider an Alfred plea and get a stay of injunction, meaning he doesn't admit guilt, and then he does probation and the charge is dismissed. No idea.
Alfred plea. Okay,
Alfred plea,
Alfred
yeah.
plea. God, I can't talk today. Plea. Have you is it okay?
I'm not sure about
Well, there we
that,
go.
but
We got
yeah.
some homework to do right
Yeah.
there. Appreciate that, Glenn. All right, so we get to April. By the way, how did this end up on our radar all of a sudden? What brought this to everyone's attention? this
So,
week?
so in April, we went to sentencing. There was no plea, so it was set for pretrial. So we have pretrial in August, and then an actual jury trial in September. So my mom had recently been diagnosed with breast cancer during
Oh, I'm
this.
sorry to hear that.
She just finished up like her radiation, so she's
Good,
doing
survivor,
awesome. Yeah. So between that and Walker just trying to finish up his last semester of school, trying to wrap up like I'm like, okay, I'll give you a month. We'll give you a month to just let it, to not think about this. And then we need to start. Everybody was like, you got to start a fundraiser. You got to get the word out. And honestly, I was afraid to do it because it is such a strongly strong emotions around firearm right now.
Because of, you're saying the like national dialogue or what?
Yeah. And I was afraid to like go public even with people outside my family.
Yeah, I get you.
And then I just kept getting pressured by friends, and they're like, you've got to get this going. You've got to go public. And we literally did it, I think this week.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, talk about a strong patriot network. I mean, it was on our radar 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So like it got out quick.
Yeah.
And then thank God for you responding, you
Yeah.
know, so we could cover this topic.
Yeah.
And then of course, Liz Collin of Alpha News is recording a documentary in our studio too. So you just met her obviously, so they got an interest in the story. So I think the story's going to get out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to put it this way. A lot of us gun owners that didn't know about this law are like, what on earth's going on? We're all going to be having those conversations with friends.
Yeah.
Right.
It has been suggested to me that there may be a more, a bigger reason other than Walker why the plea was changed, and that this maybe isn't so much about Walker, but given the fact that it's a very clean case, this wasn't a firearm that was used in a crime that they then ascertained there wasn't a serial number. There is this is a victimless crime if there is ever, other than
correct.
Walker and his mom. So the implications I think that a conviction in this could have statewide, I'm afraid of what that might do.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, literally, a lot of people are kind of nervous to hear about this.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to bring this out to everyone's attention.
And to think there are so many people in Minnesota that are like, they might not even know. They're like, yeah, I don't hunt, but I've got my grandfather's rifle. Like, do you get the magnitude of the people that all of a sudden are potentially felons?
Yeah, have you ever heard the saying, show me the man, I'll show you the crime?
No.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, there's so many crimes on the book. Great example right here that the average person, I think they say is committed 2 felonies or is committing 2 felonies, some kind of saying. And I mean, we know this too. Like we're being targeted right now by a government agency. It's all political. It's ridiculous. Fraudulent charge against us. Not charge, but a complaint against us, and they're investigating. It's just like that's the scary thing about this world is that they can find anything on you, right?
Right. Well, it's so crazy because he sounds like such a great guy. Mechanic. He's in college. He plays baseball.
Does he?
No record.
Does he have birthday presents for you? Does he miss Mother's Day, anything like that?
No.
Great guy, right?
Okay, but
Great
I'm also
guy.
Great guy.
Wow.
I'm also really like low maintenance. I'm like, you just need to go on a walk with me. We have a puppy, and so I'm like, you have to come on a walk with me for Mother's Day. Like, that's all I want. Just come on a walk with me. So pretty easy to get out of them.
That's a good mother right there. Well, man. So yeah, and then of course he becomes a felon. Then he can't own firearms.
He can't. Well, I mean, I guess he will eventually get to vote, but he would lose a lot of constitutional rights.
Right. Correct.
Employment,
Correct.
housing. I don't actually want him to live at home forever. So I need him to be able to secure a mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
ruins his life for nothing.
it's
Like you said,
huge.
a victimless crime.
And there are actually crimes being committed with firearms, and the felonies are being dropped as like part of the plea agreement.
You can go into Target just down the road over here. You could walk out of the store with $500 of goods you didn't purchase, and nothing will happen to you. Did you know that? That's happening here in Minnesota. We know the cases in like San Francisco and the West Coast. That happens in Minnesota. They won't charge you because nothing will happen. The cops have been like, well, if we book this person, the prosecutors are going to let him off. And here's a harmless thing. No one's hurt in this situation, and they're trying to throw the book at it. Now, I just kind of wonder, like, it does seem like there might be something political that we don't know about yet, and why they're trying to make a case out of it. Maybe it's just that they want a grander, to expand to all firearm owners. Maybe there's a motivation. Maybe I don't know anything about the attorney, the Sherburne County attorney. You would think that person's conservative, but and I can't think of her name.
Roxanne Cowell says the Sherburne County Sheriff and County Attorney need to go. So I don't know if they know more about him.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And of course, a lot of people thought the Sherburne County Sheriff was like this pro-Second Amendment sheriff. By the way, think about that. Sherburne County Sheriff being pro-Second Amendment, piloting this like sanctuary county thing, and it's like you're prosecuting someone for a victimless gun crime.
Yeah, wait a second. If Sherburne County is a Second Amendment sanctuary, they shouldn't be going after any of this, right?
Well, I don't know if they are. Did they ever pass that? I thought they did. I have to go remember here.
I'm
But
That'd be good
sure.
to look into, but
yeah, I mean, that would essentially be undermining what the sheriff was saying about a sanctuary county, because
right.
you're actually literally prosecuting an unconstitutional law.
I'll look that up. Because,
Yeah, look it up right
that's
now. I'm very
interesting.
curious.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, we know, obviously, because Walker and his father had conversations with the sheriff, prior to charges even being, like, when it was just initially happening, where I believe he could have made a decision not to, pursue it. They had a personal conversation on the phone with the sheriff about this, and he blew them off.
Unbelievable. And he answers to him. That's the thing that's interesting about the sheriff, is the sheriff works for the people. He's actually law enforcement that gets voted in.
Yeah.
Kathleen Heaney is the county attorney in Sherburne County. Kathleen Heaney. I mean, is she a lefty? Is this like her thing? Like, how did she get elected in Sherburne County? Maybe she didn't have a really tough election. Maybe there was no one really running against her, but this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think of like, I don't know Sherburne County well enough to see what's going through, the people that are breaking the law up there. But I would imagine, like a lot of rural Minnesota counties, they're dealing probably with a lot of drug issues, and that is far more important for them to put their resources towards.
I would, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the county is a little more urban, but like certainly Becker and Santiago, where this, I mean, it is
I didn't want to call
about
it urban because I don't want to
it's
make
more,
it sound bad, because you get over here.
it's a larger community.
I know. I almost felt bad asking you to come to Ramsey County, because I mean, my God. See, I don't live here. I live over in Washington County.
Okay.
So I'm not as rural as Sherburne, but
Sorry.
there's trees and fields where I live. This is just a concrete jungle here.
Yeah.
Other comments and questions, and then we're gonna get into politics. You don't need to stay for that, but I want to at least get through all the people's questions for her.
Really quick, can I read a comment before questions?
Sure,
So Roxanne
absolutely.
Cowell says they did pass it, Sherburne County.
Sherburne County passed it. Did you confirm that, William?
So I actually wasn't able to find it. I found a lot of articles saying that they introduced it, but I couldn't find an article talking about the outcome.
Yeah,
of
and
the
it'd be
vote.
also interesting to read the resolution. We worked with Isani County to pass it. So it's not like they're all the same, but essentially the sheriff was making a statement that I won't enforce unconstitutional new gun laws by the feds. Then why are you doing the unconstitutional gun laws by the state? That's crazy. You could have stood up for the right of your citizen here. So shame on them for doing that.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, we're generally supportive of law enforcement, right? Because most people in law enforcement are good people. But there are bad cookies out there. And, that's the problem with us who believe in liberty, is you got to be careful in just this blanket statement of being for law enforcement. And we're seeing a weaponized FBI these days. Like, you got to be careful. This can actually be used against us. We need to stand up as patriots to do the right thing and stand up for the Constitution. And that's the whole republic, is we're a constitutional republic. You don't just make up laws. That's like the Democrats and the RINOs, they always talk about, our great democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. There's a big difference, and this is the difference. In a democracy, the mobs can say, throw him in jail. And that's bad, because these people have rights. We have a constitutional republic where if it's not a power that was given to the federal government or the state government, they don't have that power. And we've further expanded this to say this is a Bill of Rights. These are the rights that were given to you by your creator. No government can take those away. And one of those is shall not be infringed when it comes to firearms. And that one is always infringed on. It's insane. We've gone a complete 180 from our founding of this country. If we get back to that direction, we're going to be so much better off. There's your constitution. I get so heated on this stuff. It bugs the crap out of me. It's why that and monetary policy is what got me back involved in politics like 10 years ago.
Sorry.
Because I watch this stuff and I go, what's the demise of America? It's the fact that we think debt and money printing is a solution to economics, and the fact that we don't even pay attention to the Constitution. Like, and we're going to get into this, why this bill passed, but it passed through an omnibus bill, which means a bill that has multiple subjects and multiple things in it. The Minnesota Constitution says that's illegal. You can't do that. And they do it anyhow. But somehow they follow the Constitution when it's like, well, you must adjourn on this day. They follow that part of the Constitution. What does it even matter? Why do you follow any of the Constitution? Why do you just follow little bits and pieces? And that's how they think. They think, well, we have the ultimate power and rights in this country. And that's why we're so much against the ruling elite, because they don't care about our rights. They don't care about you. Is that you had no idea your day was going to turn this way. She's just looking at me. She's like, holy crap, what did I walk into?
It's all good.
Well,
that's why we're so on board with Walker here.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
100%.
Deep in our core.
Thank
Because,
you.
we really grew to prominence during the lockdowns. Like, our governor just unilaterally decided, well, we don't need a legislature anymore. Who cares about constitutional rights? I'm just going to shut down the state. And if you leave your house, you could be in jail for 90 days. Who gave you that right? I didn't say that. I didn't agree with this. You can't do that. And they just think that they can do this stuff. And so, yeah, you got to stand with Walker. Hey, we should say stand with Walker. I like that.
There you go.
It's catchy.
That is catchy. While we still have Sarah here, we should put up the Give, Send, Go on
Let's
the
do
screen
that.
here.
Yeah, you had a GoFundMe, but a Give, Send, Go doesn't rape you of all the fees, and then basically just decide
To shut us down.
Yeah,
That's my
shut you
concern.
down, which they
Yeah.
did with Rittenhouse, like
Yeah.
millions of dollars that was raised for Rittenhouse. And by the way, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was a minor at the time, shot and killed a child predator who just got out of prison, and somehow Kyle Rittenhouse was the bad person. Isn't that interesting? How the media spins things.
Yeah.
And somehow, with no evidence, he was labeled a white supremacist. Even the president said that. Oh, politics. That's why we have a show, Sarah. That's why we have a show. Oh, man. Do we have that link, Dawson? Deep State Dawson's like, no, I want to take all the guns.
William
No, you-
decided to put it in Signal instead of email, so
Oh, you got to email it to him.
Oh, you said that you had a Signal on your desktop.
Nope.
I have two desktops.
Oh,
here.
Bridget
Oh,
put
no,
it in the
one.
Rumble comments too, but here, let me.
Oh, when we do have the Rumble, and then
It's in all the comments, I think.
okay, and
I
on
posted
YouTube
that,
and Facebook as well. We
Yeah.
stream to 3 different platforms simultaneous. Yeah,
Wow.
and then people can watch after the fact too. Most of our audience watches after the fact.
Okay.
Somehow Tucker is always able to watch live. As we found out, Tucker
Yeah, he
works
works
nights,
nights.
right? So there you go.
I just sent it over.
Our
email.
loyal fan base, we love them too. And by the way, just so you guys know, we won't be doing a Twitter. What are they called? Twitter Spaces afterwards. I got too much on my plate. I can't do it, but it's been fun doing that with the people that attend, and I think our audience will grow. I think a lot of people are just getting used to that. All right, so there is Walker. Is he a pitcher? Looks like that's
He's a
pitching
pitcher.
stance. There you go.
Yep.
The link is in the description or each comment section right now.
Gotcha. So, and this is going to his legal defense fund, so Sarah doesn't have to keep writing checks out of his college fund, which really sucks that has to
Oh,
be the case.
I had to deal with FAFSA as a result of this, trying to get student loans after all this because the money was gone. That alone was a nightmare.
Yeah. I like how you say it's a victimless crime, and yet you guys are the victims here, right?
Kind of feels like that, yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's and
Yeah.
yeah, I want to really get to the bottom of the politics of it. Why they're coming so hard at you guys? That's
Well, someone
the mystery
asked,
to
are they
me.
just trying to set a precedent?
I mean, that
And
makes
then-
sense. That certainly makes sense. I could also see padding a resume, but I almost wonder if there's something else at play here.
I hope it's the latter and she's just ambitious, maybe?
In a bad way. Yeah, usually ambitious is a good term, right?
And that there's not more because then that's just a headache I don't even want to. if there's more to it. It is my understanding that this potentially is the first time that if this goes to trial, and there is a conviction or an acquittal, this will be the first time that this statute has been applied to a privately made firearm. So it does have the potential to set case law.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's true. I can't imagine that this has happened before.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if there is case law, then you can potentially forego the messy debate that would ensue if you were to try to pass a law around privately made firearms.
Well,
because
yeah,
you can
it would give the Democrats less reason to have to pass it.
Yeah.
And it gives Republicans more reason to actually stand up and do the right thing.
Right.
Because this thing is a loophole that needs to be closed. I totally forgot about this, but I think you had mentioned on the phone the DNR had an auction of firearms that they confiscated. Tell us about this.
So the Minnesota DNR does a public auction for seized firearms. I'm assuming other items that are seized. And so 2022 was the most recent that we had seen when we were looking at evidence or making our argument. In their 2022 seized firearm auction, there were, I believe, a total of 9 firearms that were listed as unserialized that the Minnesota DNR was auctioning off to the public.
Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. Rules for thee, but not for me. You know, I also think about the serial numbers that were on the gun running program that the Obama administration sent to cartels in Mexico. You know about that? Can't remember the name. What was that operation called? Yeah. But literally, they gave firearms to cartels because they wanted to trace, movements and stuff with the cartels. So we gave firearms that were used in murders.
Fast and Furious?
Yeah.
Fast and Furious. There you go. Good memory. Unreal. Any other questions or comments before we move on to the politics of this?
There were a couple. So Bad Hat Harry said the state will probably try to offer pre-1968 owners the opportunity to surrender their weapons, which I don't know if they would ever do that, but.
Yeah, over my dead hands, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I lost them all in a boating accident, so it doesn't matter for me. I know you're not a gun gal, but have you heard that one before?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're about to incriminate yourself, Jake.
What's that?
I know.
You're about to incriminate yourself by explaining
I didn't say anything. What are you talking about? We're not incriminating anything going on here. It's just unfortunately these boating accidents that keep happening.
Dover Dan said it almost seems like they were backpedaling. Then they decided to change after signing the plea. Like they were initially backpedaling, but. And then Kate Wall says, what part of shall not be infringed is unclear.
Yeah, that's what I always wonder. It's like, is there any stronger language in the Constitution that shall not be infringed? I mean, even the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law, right? But shall not be infringed is just shall not be infringed. You can't take someone's right to keep bear arms. It's a pretty big deal because if you can, then it's pretty easy for the government just to overrun you. That's why we have a Second Amendment. Not for hunting, not for target practicing, but because governments become tyrannical.
So Bad Hat Harry again asks, the big question is, can a pre-68 legacy weapon be serialized?
Well, I mean, serial numbers really are manufacturers wanting to just trace firearms. Like in the collector's world, it's actually nice to know serial because then you can trace to like antiques that maybe have been used by famous people or where it was used in war, for instance. So, I mean, it's not just firearms that have serial numbers. So, and there's not a gun registry, despite people thinking that there's not a like a big gun registry where it says, oh, this serial number is owned by this person. So, it's just in their case of the government here is if it was ever used in a crime, which it's not likely ever going to be used in a crime unless someone stole it from your son because he's probably never going to has that intent. But if it's ever used in a crime, then they have something that they can identify that weapon with.
Right.
That's the reason. That's the reason they want to throw this guy in prison. Because in case this firearm, which it never will, was ever to be used in a crime, they have an identifier for that firearm. Otherwise, how would we identify this firearm? It's ridiculous.
WZ44 says, praying for you and your son. And then Bad Hat Harry says, I'm with you completely.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of prayers from our people.
Yeah.
Prayers are good.
Yeah.
We'll take those.
Lots of people will watch this show too, by the way. So this will get out there. A lot of people will know about this case.
Freedom Junkie says, they feed on our fear. We have to fight them somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And a republic if you can keep it, he adds.
Yeah, the infamous words of Benjamin Franklin. A woman asked, "What kind of government did you give us?" "A republic, if you can keep it." It seems more and more every day we can't keep it because we are like a 180 from the way this country was founded. Not that they had everything right at the founding of this country, but the Constitution is pretty darn good, right? And good for reasons that these guys were brilliant. You know, they knew what would happen. And we just forget about that stuff. And then it really affects your life. And like you said, you weren't into politics. You weren't a gun person. Like you wanted to be quiet. You didn't want to like go public. And
I'm
all
a
of a sudden,
sports mom.
there you go.
Like, that's it.
Should be able to just not be part of the public dialogue. But hey, by the way, next 6 months of your life is probably going to be part of the public dialogue now, which is unfortunate, but you're going to have to. And you knew that coming in here. You're going to have to do that because the most important thing now is for Walker not to have to go to prison and not have his life uprooted.
100%.
And the interesting dynamic in your case, not being able to see family because you guys happen to have family and property in both Canada and America, which is that's a dynamic I never would have thought even would come into play until you brought that up.
Yeah.
By the way, was he originally from Quebec or is there really a French-Canadian population in Ontario?
There is not. But I think his grandparents were, oh my goodness, I'm going to forget the word, Métis. So indigenous and French descendant.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but we don't actually even pronounce it correctly. That's not how you pronounce it in French. It's just we're okay with saying Forgues.
Well, I was going to correct you on that one, but any other comments or questions?
Yeah, we have Hate MN says, I just shared the Give Send Go link to thousands of people. Please give an update next week.
Thank you very much for doing that. Appreciate that.
And then Dover Dan asks, they were not charged. I don't know if he's referring to.
I don't know
Or
either.
yeah.
Oh, probably the DNR. They're not charged. Yeah,
Oh.
no one's charging the DNR for doing that, right?
I mean, I would think not.
No, of course not. No. Rules for thee, not for me.
Dover
How it
Dan
works.
says, he says the DNR could then be charged for selling firearms without a serial number, and then the person buying it could be charged also, correct? He's asking if that's correct.
Yeah, I think in that case, if you look at the law, it would be that case. But you know, this wasn't a firearm that was intact. He built the firearm, so
You're
I
right.
don't think that could be
Right.
in this particular case. But if I had, if Joe Blow had his firearm that didn't have a serial number, he had possession of it, even though he sold it. So yeah,
And then Noof 2727 says we should get Minnesota gun rights on this.
They're
Yeah.
on it.
There.
Yeah.
Bridget,
good.
reminds me of our story that we were talking about like a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I know.
I'm definitely not going to bring that up on the show, but interesting conversation.
I thought, yeah.
Well, Sarah, we really appreciate it. We're going to stay
Thank
on
you.
top of this. We'll keep
Cool.
in contact with you, but the pre-trial's in August.
Correct. Early August.
Okay, well, let's hope there's resolution to this way beforehand.
Yeah.
But I have a funny feeling there's going to be a lot more money going to that legal defense fund here, so he should be pretty good and
Yeah.
lawyered up. And I know a lawyer that might be interested in hearing about this case and the constitutionality, and maybe this thing gets blown up to a higher level too eventually to challenge this unconstitutional law.
Under Bruin, it is like perfect to be overturned under the Bruin decision.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's why I'm even surprised that they're willing to risk it too.
Yeah, there's some politics behind it. We got to get to the bottom of it. Well, thank you for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much.
So let's go back to the article actionforliberty.com. And Dawson, if you could pull that up. I want to go into actually this state statute 609637. So you can go to actionforliberty.com to read the story. It's our most newly published one. There you go. 609667. Oh, did you update that, William?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
Did
Maybe Dawson did it.
Dawson, did you? Well, Dawson. Oh, yes.
He could
Dawson can
change
do
it.
it on it. Okay. He showed
oh,
us.
so it's not actually updated.
Well done. Look at that. We got live fact checking here.
okay.
Jesse, why don't you come back out in the studio here and make sure Sarah's all taken care of. So click on that hyperlink 609667 there. And so once again, this is the statute that they're referencing for the prosecution number 3, receives or possesses a firearm that is not identified by a serial number. This was added to Chapter 636. Now, you got to ask the question, and most of us didn't even know this thing existed. When did this come about? Like, when? Because we follow legislature, but we've only really been doing this for, I don't know, 6 years at best, you know? And
Less
really
for
at
me.
it. What's that?
Less for me.
Well, yeah, of course.
Came
But
in a
really
little
at
later.
it, you know, just in the last couple of years. But, you know,
Right.
I used to do a lot what Jesse does. I'd have the 2 screens on, watch the House and the Senate. So you can see right there in the history, and we were doing some other research on where this came from, but right there's a link to the history of this, and this is referencing the 1994 bill. Go ahead and click on that there for me, Dawson. So this bill, which passed in 1994, now there was a Democrat House and Democrat Senate that year. I think the House in that election in 94 went Republican, and I think that's when Steve Swigum took the helm as Speaker. But the governor was Republican Arnie Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
So this is HF number 2351. Now, as we've talked about many different times, this is an unconstitutional omnibus bill. Minnesota Constitution, Article 4, Section 17 says that all bills must be single subject, and that subject should be expressly written in the title. So when you look at a bill that says an act relating to crime and crime prevention, appropriating money for the Attorney General, public defense, courts, corrections, criminal justice, penalties for a variety of violent crimes, requiring certain dangerous repeat offenders to serve mandatory minimum sentences, increasing regulation of penalty. I mean, you can tell they're covering a multitude of different subjects. And on top of that, if you just scroll down here a little bit, you're going to see what this bill really was an appropriations bill, because you're going to see money that's being allocated there. You see how it says in 1995, $230,000 being allocated to the Attorney General. Okay? So this is an appropriation bill. And if you just, Dawson, if you do Control Find and look up, let's just look up the word, what should I look up? Just put serial in there. Because it's going to be, it's usually the second one. Section 22 of this bill is where you see the language. Whoever commits any of the following acts may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 5 years or the payment of a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. And then, of course, number 3 is reiterates or receives or possesses a firearm that is not identified by a serial number. There you go. So that's what, and then underline, as we've told you guys, and I'm sure it's always worth repeating, you know, how to read bills in Minnesota. Because we were just doing an article on Texas. You know, was this the Texas or was this the Nevada? I think it was the Texas bill we were looking at, where Texas puts in like blue additional language. So this is a Minnesota thing.
No, that's the Nevada.
That's the Nevada.
Yeah,
Texas
made it
has
hard
a different
to
way.
read. It was like a dumb font too.
Yeah, everyone's got a different way of doing it. But when
Yeah.
you see it underlined in Minnesota, that means the new language that's being added into current state law. When you see a strikeout, that means it's being removed. And if it's the same, it just means you're reading what current law says. So if you see Section 23 right below that, that's neither struck out or underlined, meaning that's what the current law says. So they added that, and then scroll down to the bottom, very, very bottom, and this obviously passed the House and Senate, and it was presented to the governor on May 6th of 1994 and signed by Republican, right there on the very bottom, the last line, signed by the Republican Governor Arnie Carlson on May 10th, 1994. Now, Sarah's son, Walker, possibly going to prison because a Republican governor signed this anti-gun bill into law. Now, he
Crazy.
did do line item vetoes on some money expenditures, I think like 10. So we looked
some
up his vetoes.
appropriations.
He could have vetoed the whole bill, right? And did they get back to you at the legislative library, Jesse?
Very recently, so I got some new information here that I put in a request with the Minnesota
Let's
legislative.
tell them why we had to reference the legislative
Right.
library first.
Yeah. So if you go online, you are not able to see anything from 1994 or previous. So you have to reach out to the Minnesota Legislative Reference Library if you want to be able to find these bills, if you want to be able to find the votes. So that's exactly what I did. So I reached out to them, told them I wanted to see House File 2351 and the votes that were associated with it. What I found out was in the House, it was a vote of 132 to 1. The one,
What? Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
And the one person to vote against
Hold
it.
on, let me guess. Phil Krinke.
No, this I'm not even sure how to say his name. Rodosovich. So and he was a
Rodosovich?
Democrat, and then
So it's a Democrat that votes against. So
Right.
am I mistaken? Wasn't Phil Krinky a legislator in '94?
I'd have to go into this and
Okay.
check it out. But then if we look at the Senate, 63-1, and the one person to vote against it is someone that we still know about today, pay-to-play Pappas, the Democrat as well. She was the only no vote on this bill in the Senate. And I went and took the time to see, well, let's see who else was involved in this process. Former Governor Tim Pawlenty, when he was in the legislature,
Yep.
he supported it.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at, who's still in the Senate that supported this thing. So, in the House, Gene Pawlowski, the fake moderate, the guy who pretends to be a Blue Dog Democrat, he supported this thing. And then Ann Put Me to Rest. She, of course, supported this thing.
Over in
And
the
John
Senate.
Marty also supported this bill. But what shocked me was I found 2 Republicans who are still a part of the legislature who supported this bill. So we can thank Greg Davids and we can thank Warren Limmer. Both of them were in the legislature and supported this bill. They're still in the legislature to this day. They're the reason for this prosecution. It's completely unfair.
And Warren Limmer, prides himself as being like a pro-gun guy, right? And I think he gets the endorsement from like groups like Gun Owners Caucus and stuff
he
like
certainly
that.
shouldn't.
I think I'm guessing in '94 because I'm looking up the LEA scorecard right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Phil Krinky was in there. Not that I knew the dynamics. I didn't even live in Minnesota in 1984.
How do you spell that? And was he in the House or Senate?
Krinkie would have been House.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of some of the people that were kind of known as the conservatives back then. Tom Emmer came on a little later on. And by the way, I'm referring to Tom Emmer, I think was considered a conservative back when he was in the Minnesota House. Okay, so don't...
Yeah, Krinky was in there at the time, so let's see what the vote was here.
Was he really?
Let's see.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it right now in LEA's scorecard. 53A.
I'm not seeing a vote on it, so he may have been absent.
Okay.
I'm not seeing his name on here.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that would have been uncharacteristic of him, from what I understand. But, and I'm just looking. Yeah, Tim Pawlenty certainly in the House at that time.
Yep.
Tomasoni obviously passed away, but was a
Right,
senator
Tomasoni was involved in it
pretty
as well.
recently. And so the only ones you found certainly Republicans, because what we were going to talk about today is RINOs, the problem with RINOs. So this is right now the case. You got Warren Lemmer, who actually is the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, Public Safety and Judiciary Committee in the Minnesota Senate, was the ranking member when the idiotic Republican senators still were in charge.
Mm-hmm.
They blew that one. And now they come after us as if like we're the problem, these assholes in the Republican Senate. But yeah, look at that. This is it's interesting. When we were going to the show, we were like, hey, maybe this kind of merges into what we were going to talk about the problem with RINOs. And then we knew Arnie Carlson signed this into law. And we're like, well, there's clearly a RINO.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Then
know
we
until you
find
just
out
told me that it was like all of them.
Every single Republican, except for maybe this Crinkle guy that you're saying maybe maybe was absent, but beyond that, every single Republican had voted for this bill. And the fact that we still have Greg Davids and Warren Limmer still a part of the legislature. I know that Greg Davids, for example, he supported the Judy Seeberger bill recently, which was the oil refinery bill, which fired non-union people. So unless you're a part of a socialist union, Greg David says that you shouldn't have a job working for an oil refinery. These are the RINOs that we're dealing with. They're still around.
And this is exactly why we are against the political class. This is exactly why they come and attack us. This is why we have these erroneous campaign finance board complaints against us by, Mike, what's his name? Mike, whatever his Campbell and the Senate Victory Fund. Really, the Republican senators. This is why we are so hard on these guys, because they pass these unconstitutional omnibus bills, and in this case, it's like, oh, okay, they passed it. What does that even matter? There's a kid, a young man, who's about to face prison time because of your asshole move, because of what you did. What is that? Almost 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Can I do math?
Well, nowadays now because of Tim Walz and because of the Democratic legislature, we have red flag laws. But this bill also was the precursor for this. So I found some sections of this bill, no guns for some. So Someone found incompetent to stand trial will be prohibited from possessing a pistol or assault weapon. The same ban will apply to someone found not guilty due to mental illness. And then, let's see, anyone convicted of assaulting a family household member using a firearm in any way during the assault could be prohibited from possessing any type of firearm for life. This ban could range from 3 years to life at the discretion of the sentencing judge. Violation of the provision will be a gross misdemeanor. Another one, the changes apply to crimes committed on or after August 1st, 1994. And previously, if the family member did not reoffend after 3 years after the assault, the gun would be returned. So that was removed. And there's a few other things relating to guns as well. But, considering the fact that this type of gun control, in a bill that from 1994 that you can't even find online, you have to go through all these hoops to try and find it.
It's in microfilm, right? That's what they told
Right,
you.
exactly. It's in microfilm. So I thought, do I have to physically go down there to get this
We were about
thing?
to send Jesse down there.
Right, and but apparently they have it digitalized. So if it's digital, put it on your website. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is there, and it took them a while to get this thing. It seemed like a pretty simple request. I called
I
them
think
up.
it's funny. He says a while. I was actually pressed. They got back to him before the show, and this was breaking news to us.
Right, I know. I was hoping
Breaking
that we
news
would
from
be able to-
1994.
But yeah, no, I got it about 20, 30 minutes ago. So I've just been analyzing these votes ever since.
Well, we appreciate that, Jesse. Good job staying on top of that. And it's
Thank you.
interesting. Greg Davids and Warren Limmer for you guys voting for this stuff and put me to rest.
Yep,
These,
John Marty.
Yep.
Yep,
These
my current senator.
Yeah, these guys, and that's why we're against the political class. Look what they do. They pass these laws. They probably didn't even read it. That's the thing. Probably didn't even read it. And then now someone's life is being uprooted because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just why I can't stand the
Yep, and
political
Palenti,
class.
he became governor after this. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's actually very believable.
Yeah.
Very believable. Of course, he had Jesse Ventura in between the two, but
Mhm.
Arnie Carlson, Republican governor of Minnesota, signed this into law. RINOs, the problem with RINOs. I wanted to bring this up to you. This is very interesting. There's this little thing going around in like the political circles. The average person doesn't give a shit about this thing, but it's kind of funny. There's a meme that was posted on Scott County's website, Scott County's Facebook page on, what was that? Saturday? When was this, William? Over the
A
weekend?
couple days ago.
Yeah, it was over the weekend, wasn't it?
No, it was this week.
So you're saying you were ahead
Monday or
of them
Tuesday?
on posting it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that whoever's behind the Scott County account that we probably know took it from us.
Oh, you're the OG. Okay, funny.
I think so.
All right.
I didn't make the meme. I stole it myself.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
think
the
I got
thing.
it from Twitter.
Memes are open source.
Right.
Unless you're Rub Door, then you think you own the memes. There's some other inside baseball.
Yeah.
All right, pull up this meme. This is very interesting. So this was shared on Scott County GOP's website. Leaders who have their political opponents arrested: Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong.
They should change them
and-
into walls, like our poster.
Well, fair enough. That's
Yeah.
true. But in this case, Joe Biden, because it's very obvious the DOJ is going after his rival, his political rival, and Donald Trump. Okay. Now, kind of funny. It's a stretch, obviously. That's why I was like, well, yeah, that's a stretch here. But harmless. Completely harmless.
Completely harmless.
All right. Oh, my God. The fallout's been rather hilarious to us because the Democrats got triggered by this thing and all up in arms. So what happens? They reach out and they call upon the Republican Party of Minnesota to disavow this thing. And what does the cronies at the Republican Party do? They issue a statement and they go to Scott County saying, remove this thing and we disavow it. And by the way, it's Mike Lonergan. It's not even David Hand. He's too chicken shit to even make the statement himself. So they're disavowing the party. Well, what we find so hilarious is the grassroots, you guys who don't think this thing's offensive. Yes, it's a stretch, but it's a meme. It's a meme, whatever. You guys have rose up and pushed back. So Kitson County GOP, Rice County GOP, I think there's another GOP, posted this thing in solidarity. Former Representative Eric Mortensen, State Senator Nathan Wiesenberg posted this thing. Senator Bill Liskey posted this thing. So people are now pushing back at it, saying, shame on the Republican Party for just taking their talking points from the Democrats and just kowtowing to the left wing here, which they're always doing. Like we just showed you in this bill, they just kowtow to the left. They're so fearful of their shadow because that shadow might be considered racist or against the Jews. I guess in this case, just it's not anti-Semitic. What's the real harm in this one? It's just too extreme. Like, what is the harm here? It's a stupid meme. But anyhow, whatever. They're afraid of their damn shadow, and they're always answering the left. And so that's why they issued the statement. So these guys they're pushing back, and it's kind of funny, all for an issue that literally the average voter doesn't care about. No one gives a shit about this thing, but the people in the political circles are going at it. Anyhow, so somebody was really irate about it, sent this to me, and this is very fascinating. Apparently, David Hann was on, and we've talked at great lengths about corrupt David Hann, the chair of the Minnesota GOP. I'm sorry if you don't know who he is. Why would you? You know, this guy is about the lamest dude on the planet. Very boring. The only reason he's the chair of the GOP is no one wanted to run for the job. No one even cared to be the chairman of the Republican Party after that.
I remember
slaughter.
there's someone in the comments that very, very much likes Phil Parrish. I remember every time you mention him, you get an angry comment.
Yeah, I'll stick with it. Phil's a kind of crazy guy, okay? That's the only person that ran against David Hann.
Yep.
Party wouldn't have been much better under Philip Parrish either, okay? Although I would say Philip Parrish is at least more conservative and more grassroots-oriented than David Hann. Because David Hann's just a puppet for whatever big money interests there are. They're running the party into the ground, by the way. And it's so obvious. You could just see they lost everything in this last election. And then they still come after us. They still want to try to make an issue out of us. So anyhow, he's on the Jack Tomczak radio show or podcast. I don't know. I know Jack's with Patriot Radio nowadays, AM 1280. But anyhow, he's on this. Someone sent this to me at a timestamp, and this is fascinating. Apparently, David Hann thinks it's his job to talk to the DFL chair about the faction in his party. Let's go ahead and play this audio, and we put this up on Rumble and I think on YouTube. This is in David Hann talking on Jack Tomczak's show.
And I have, as part of my job, but I've met with and had coffee with Chairman Ken Martin of the DFL, and we talk about things, and we've actually talked about trying to work together on a few things, which we haven't really done a whole lot, but there are things that we share in common in terms of interests. And he would be, I don't know if he would be openly this candid, but with me he said, you know, he knows that we've got factions within the Republican Party, but there are also factions within the Democrat Party. We've got factions within the Republican Party, but there are also factions within the Democrat Party.
How nice to know that David Hann is having lunch or coffee or whatever with Ken Martin, the Democrat Party chair, who basically they call the shots because they tell them to disavow and their own party units, and they disavow. They take the orders from them. They're having conversations about the factions in the
how
party.
they can work together. I think that's the bigger piece. I'm not so sure about the factions, but I think that's the takeaway here.
It's a uniparty.
Yeah. It is a uniparty. And we know some of the things that they do to work together. Number one, very openly, both wanted to change the threshold of third parties getting ballot access, which they were successful on. Yeah, Democrats and Republicans came together on making sure that third parties had to get 8% on an election to stay a major party.
Mm-hmm.
It was 5%. Now it's 8%. Yeah, they don't want competition, right?
Yep.
We know they both agree on getting rid of groups like Action for Liberty, right? I mean, the reason I'm emphasizing the faction part on this is because we know the faction they're talking about. They're talking about us. They're talking about the liberty movement, Action for Liberty kind of people. That's what they're talking about. You conservative grassroots people. What do you think about David Hann talking to the enemy? You know, because let's not make any mistake about it. The Democrats, they're a lost cause. The radical leftists that run the Democrat Party, no hope for them. Okay, if you're a Blue Dog Democrat, you're a JFK Democrat. I'm sorry, that party is completely abandoning you right now. Good luck to RFK. You're going to get 15% at best, and that's because you got the worst president incumbent the Democrat Party's had.
He did go on Joe Rogan today.
Jim Carter. Yeah, no, I can't wait to hear that on Joe Rogan. Although it's kind of hard to listen to RFK for a very long period of time. His voice is very hard to listen to, which is going to really hurt him as a candidate, unfortunately, because he has things to offer.
Yeah.
But
you know, one thing I'm thinking about this MNGOP thing. Okay, so here's the thing: where was David Hann in the MNGOP statement as Trump was getting indicted? Nothing. Silence. Where was the MNGOP as, Trump was going to court? Nothing. Silence. And so what do? When do they speak up? To attack local, patriotic activists who are posting a meme in support of Donald Trump. So what is the party doing? They're attacking people who are supporting Trump. That's what's going on right here. What the MNGOP should be doing is supporting Trump, supporting, that this is an injustice, that this is a kangaroo court, that this is a scam, that this is a witch hunt. But there's nowhere to be found because they're run by RINOs. They're against the people. They're against Trump. So, of course, it's a uniparty. David Hand and Ken Martin, they're on the same page when it comes to Donald Trump.
Okay, so that's a very good point here. Let's go pull up the Twitter of the MNGOP. I'm going to post it in the show notes here for you, Dawson, just to make it real simple. And I'm going to post it on why do I not have the window?
Right,
open?
I know that I got an email from the MNGOP, I think on the day of Trump's indictment, and it was just a little newsletter that said nothing about it. I mean, what a scam. These people are such jokers, let's just avoid the most important story of the world right now. Because the MNGOP wants to raise a couple of bucks,
Right.
I can't stand any of these people.
Yeah, exactly. What are they? Impartial because there's more than one candidate? Okay, yeah, but this guy's like leading by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The guy sound like Trump now. I'm leading by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
61% in the last poll that we saw.
I see 69 to 20 or 19. That's one of the polls
You
I've
see
been
a lot
seeing.
of things, Jesse.
Well, that's what it is.
You definitely see the things you want to see. Don't let me forget to tell the story about Jesse here before we sign off. Scroll down. So this is June 14th. Trump's arraigned on the 12th. Is that correct? I think it was the 12th. Yeah, the 12th. All right. So they were praising Ben Finstead. No, stop right there. Brad Finstead. Here on June 13th.
Who refuses to endorse Trump.
June 13th, the party now is going after its grassroots. It's going after Scott County. It says, please see our statement on Scott County GOP's recent Facebook post. They're only doing this because the left-wing media and Democrats asked them for a statement. So they're just basically responding to our enemy. And they say, quote, there's no question the post was uncalled for. Such rhetoric has no place in our political discourse. We have asked Scott County Party unit to remove the post in question, signed by Executive Director Mike Lonergan. And like I said, boring old David Hand can't be bothered to make a comment. Now go back there, scroll down. There's nothing on the 13th. There's just random posts here. Keep going. Then you go to the 12th. It's Women's Veterans Day. I didn't know there was such a thing. On the 12th, just talking something about walls. And then, you see how there's nothing on here? Is there two unrepentant anti-Semites in one picture? So I don't see anything on the indictment.
Of course not.
Or on... Yeah, I just want to make sure I do this accurately here because nothing on it. So the GOP couldn't be bothered to make a statement on that. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that telling?
And, that's the thing. Even opponents to Trump know this is a scam. Even DeSantis, even all of these people who are challenging him are saying that this is wrong, that he shouldn't be, charged for this. So if his opponents can say that, couldn't the Republican Party say that as well? It would only be the right thing to do, especially because Trump is going to be our nominee, and we're going to have to see David Hand get in line.
All right, so I got to tell a story about Jesse here. This is kind of funny. So a legislator reaches out to me 2 days ago and goes, hey, what is this all about, And I see it, and it's MAGA Jesse emailing him, say, I want to see if you are going to do the right thing and support Donald Trump. Will you endorse him today? Mm-hmm. And I thought you just sent it to him or her, depending on, I don't want to give away the identity or gender expression. Mm-hmm. And so I go to Jesse, and he goes, yeah, I just sent that to every single Republican legislator.
Yep. Someone's got to, that's the thing.
So,
if I'm willing, I'm willing to put in the time, get all of their emails together and send them an email.
Twice, because what Jesse first does, he took the easy route. Yep. He sent it to their official government account, their House or Senate account. Mm-hmm. And one of the legislators got back to Pat Garofalo.
Yeah, I got a few of them.
Oh, you got a few of them?
Yeah, it was Garofalo and Marion O'Neill. She had a little bit of an attitude about it. But
they had an attitude. They want to inform you they can't use politics in that, right?
Yep.
So then Jesse researches their campaign accounts, and he has emailed them now on their personal accounts.
That's right.
Have you got an endorsement for Trump? I saw that you shared Elliot Engen has endorsed DeSantis, so he's already in the camp of one.
And at least he'll admit it. Because the rest of them, they're still saying silent. They haven't said a word to me. it shows, William, they're on the same page as you. You're on board with all these RINO legislators because they're all anti-Trump. Unless if they were really for Trump, they would speak up. They would say something right now. They would endorse him. But if they're not, that means they're for DeSantis. That means they're for Tim Scott. That means they're for Nikki Haley. But it means they're not for Trump.
Whoa! Don't lump Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, and DeSantis into the same.
Well, they haven't
They're all
said
the
so.
same
Sat
thing.
there and hurled mud at me, and I took it. That's where I draw the line.
Okay.
Come on, they're not. DeSantis is not a RINO, and I think it's very unfair to characterize him as such.
Well, I wonder why all of these RINOs are supporting him. It just makes
Trump's
me really
got a lot of
curious.
RINOs supporting him. Do we really need to rehash
Well,
this
apparently
argument
he's got
every
no
show?
rhinos or Republicans
Not
supporting
in
him right now in
Minnesota. That's the thing. I just think it's crazy. If I have to go out of my way to email all of them, and when I send it
And
to them
literally out of
again,
his way. I have nothing to do with this. I was just
Right.
like shocked that this is what Jesse does in his free time.
someone had to do it, and so yeah, just to let people
Doesn't
know.
that de facto make you like the Trump campaign guy in Minnesota? Like,
I'm doing the Lord's work on this one. So yeah, I told them, I was informed by official representative emails that that's not the correct medium for my previous email. So for consistency purposes, my questions remain the same. But now I have CC'd every GOP representative's campaign email instead. So now you should have no reason that you cannot respond to my very important question. You can still be the first one to endorse. And that's the thing. I'm providing these people with an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm telling them, you
Order
can be
now, and you can get your
Hey.
exclusive Trump memorabilia.
Well, that's
for
the
an
thing,
easy payment of $49.99.
It's pretty crazy, though. I mean,
opportunity
they
of a
have the
lifetime.
opportunity of a lifetime to support President Donald Trump, who is going to be our nominee, who is going to be the next president. And,
What are you going to do if Warren Limmer responds and goes, "Yes, I will do it"?
I'll take it.
or
I'll
Ron
take it.
Krisha.
No, but
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
that'd be funny.
But I'm just saying because
I would really hope that these Liberty
you
people
just,
would step
but
up
you just
right
called
now.
out Warren Limmer about voting for this thing that's literally going to hurt this kid's life. Mm-hmm. Like, is this forgive and forget?
No, I mean, an endorsement's an endorsement. I'm just looking to see who's got some balls. That's what I'm looking for. I'm thinking, does anybody have any balls in this legislature? I'm not seeing any because, I'm giving them an opportunity to endorse Donald Trump in the most pivotal moment of the election right now because, the poll numbers, as I've told you guys, the poll numbers keep going up. All of these indictments just prove that to the American people that this is all a witch hunt. When the deep state is so anti-Trump, it makes us pro-Trump. And I'm just shocked that there is nobody, not a single representative, not a single senator in all of Minnesota who has the gumption to endorse Donald Trump. Now is the time. We should all be pressuring them to do the same thing and get behind Trump. Now is the time.
There you go.
I don't want, and really the opportunity is I don't want these people to have egg on their face. I don't want these people to be embarrassed after the primary. I'm giving them the opportunity. Hey, let's do the right
So
thing
you
right
want to
now.
save the politicians from being embarrassed?
Hey, I'm
Really?
helping them out. I'm giving them a golden opportunity.
I don't know.
They can choose to dismiss it or they can choose to respond.
I mean, does
but
Trump?
if
If
think
Trump's
about
such a great candidate, does he need their endorsements?
I just want to see, is there anybody who will? It's not that he needs their endorsements. It's just I'm curious who will. If you were a senator or representative, would you reply to my email?
Probably. I'm not in the job, but probably.
Okay, and what would you say? You'd say I'm supporting DeSantis?
Probably. Or DeSantis or the Republican nominee.
Okay, well, at least you'll do that because nobody else will. It's only
Yeah.
Elliot Engen. He's the only person who's given me a clear answer. The rest of them have either beat around the bush or they won't answer
Well, what
at
if
all.
they're like me and you just don't know yet?
Yeah.
Well, they could tell me that.
Oh,
They could email me back.
There you go.
But nobody said anything like that.
Guys,
And
would you
Garofalo,
just
I know
you-
Garofalo hates Trump anyway. I'm
Yeah,
not expecting an
yeah.
endorsement
Listen,
from him.
I know you guys don't like me. A lot of you guys hate my guts up there at the Capitol, and that's fine. Feelings mutual. But just do me a favor. I don't want to have to hear this from MAGA Jesse every hour of the day. Just respond to the guy, please.
Just
Would you
give me an
respond?
email.
It's just
One
an email.
email.
Just one email. Can't you do that? One email. One email. That's
That's
all you
certainly
got.
what
You
they
can
could
call
do.
them too. One email. That's all I'm asking. Just
Freedom
one
Junkie
email.
chimed in and said they only use Trump to get elected. And
Yeah.
that is so
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
gets
is
used all the
true.
I know
time.
they pretend to be MAGA
Yeah.
after the fact. They
Well, you
pretend to be
know-
America first, but they're not.
You know, the former minority leader, former speaker, disgraced Kurt Dowd, big RINO, lobbyist, legislator.
Yeah, he supports DeSantis.
He's the one that said that Trump should drop out of the race in October 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after the comment, the pussy grabbing comment came out,
Yeah.
he called for him to drop out of the race. And that was and And at the time, he was a Speaker of the House in
Yep.
Minnesota.
You know, it makes me think, I wonder if these legislators are told, don't get behind anybody, let's let the Republicans hash it out themselves, you know, and if they are going to get behind someone, it's basically anyone but Trump, and you do it secretly so that your supporters don't find out, because, you know, if we found out how anti-Trump a lot of these legislators were, it would change. It would change a lot in people's minds.
Sure.
You know.
That's very true. Well, you got really red during that segment, by the way.
Yeah, I'm heated up now. I mean, it's crazy.
That's
You know,
obvious.
just reply to my email. That's all I want.
Just would you reply to his email?
Yep.
Please, just do that. Do that for all of us. All right, let's read comments and we got to sign off.
Okay, Bad Hat says, who keeps contributing to the NGOP? And then K. Walker
Less
says,
and less more people, to be
Yeah.
quite frankly with you. You know, like we have more small-time donors than them. So, yeah, they get 50. And if you give to the GOP, you get $50 back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a state program. It's called the PCR, Political Contribution Refund. You give to Action for Liberty, you don't get your $50 back. Yeah, isn't that funny? They write these laws and they give these nice little cushy refunds for your donations, and they still can't raise as much money. So when you look at, and this is the same thing, and we went in the books of the Minnesota Senate Victory Fund, the crony RINO Republican senators who are launching these erroneous attacks on us with CFB. Look at who's funding them. It's lobbyists, PACs, and very wealthy individuals in Minnesota. Basically special interests. Their small donations are very tiny, and that's mostly raised through mailing programs. They raise their money from large donors, PACs, and lobbyists. So you wonder why they are the way they are. Follow the money. That's what they always say, follow the money. They're not for you guys, right?
Yep.
That's why Action for Liberty is on your board, because we get funded by the everyday Minnesotan, the grassroots. That's where our money comes from. We don't have these large special interests and PACs and lobbyists helping us out. They hate our guts.
Yeah, or the corrupt RNC that funds them.
There
too,
you go.
You
Even
know?
better case. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of how the Republican Party gets funded is,
Federal.
what do they call it? Party transfers or whatever. I can't think of
Yeah.
the term, but yeah, they get money from the RNC.
K-Wall says they quit giving after he didn't fight back. And he said Minnesota GOP is awful, unfortunately, and they actively worked against Mort. But not only Mort, like a lot of candidates.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
lots of candidates.
Yeah.
Like this latest complaint against us was, alleging an illegal corporate contribution to Tom DePel. Do you remember what they did to Tom DePel? And we talked about how the Senate Victory Fund, which is really a subsidiary of the Republican Party, but the Republican Party literally cut off his data. Like, they cut off the data of what, 5, 6, 7, like conservative candidates, endorsed candidates. They cut off their data access right before the primary. They did this to Munson the weekend before the primary, and Munson made it publicly known. These guys, they're just such cronies. These are the people running the party.
Yeah, WZ says GOP is broken uniparty. And then Hate MN says the Minnesota GOP lost its way years ago. There are some new people on both the executive committee and the central committee. We are asking questions and demanding transparency, and the old guard is freaking out.
Yep. Yeah, they are actually really scared of you and me. They are very scared of us because we've risen up. COVID changed the dynamic. Trump's changed the dynamic. I might have mixed feelings on Trump. I go up and down on him, as most normal people would, because Trump is a wild man. But I'll tell you what, the people that Trump activated and brought into politics are some of the best people out there. And don't ever, if you're a Trump person, do not leave the process. Because despite Trump's flaws, and sometimes we need flawed leaders, despite all that, he has tapped into something very real. The game is rigged against you. It's amazing that a person that's been hobnobbing with politicians his whole life, is a multi-billionaire, is the one guy that's actually saying the right thing. I shouldn't say the one guy. Technically, Ron Paul was saying all the right things, over a decade ago. But in modern day, Donald Trump is the one that's telling the truth on that. He might be one of the most honest politicians, And I'm not saying this guy's always honest, but in this case, he is. The game is rigged against you. That's why he won in 2016. It's probably why he won in 2020 as well. And that's probably why he's going to win again in 2024. So, yeah, if you're a Trump person and he got you involved with politics, stay involved. We need you because it's very important. We got big battles.
And one of the ways you can be involved, this is something that Tucker and I are actually working on Truth Social. You can join our new group, Minnesota Patriots for Trump. So you can, if you're on Truth Social, look up Minnesota Patriots for Trump. It's me and Tucker in the group right now. This is going to be the headquarters for the Minnesota Trump Army 2024. Get on the Trump train. It's on Truth Social. Minnesota Patriots for Trump.
Should
You
put
wanna
that
do
in the
a
comments, Jesse.
Do you want a DeSantis plug there, William? Nikki
good.
Haley, maybe?
I don't need to compete with that.
Okay.
Okay, well, the Nikki Haley jab was unnecessary.
If you want war with Iran, join our Nikki Haley club or whatever you call
Yeah.
the thing.
You know what? Maybe I'll make a DeSantis group on Twitter, because that's where,
Do they have
people
groups on
actually-
Twitter?
Yeah, they have group chats.
Oh, group chats, but not groups. You're giving me that William look.
What?
That one was on
What's the
camera.
difference?
Well, like on Facebook, the difference between a group and a group chat, there's groups.
Yeah.
There's
Who
not.
cares?
Well, I'm saying we have a group on
He's
Truth
just
Social.
talking about Truth Social is superior to your little
Twitter.
Elon Musk Twitter.
Well, where do we have more followers is the Action for Liberty account, Jake.
No, we're not doing any of this at Extra for Liberty. We're staying way away from this.
No,
thing.
no, but I'm asking you, like, the Action for
Oh
Liberty
yeah,
account.
true. We can't grow on Truth Social. I don't understand that platform.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It seems
Yeah.
like it's basically a way to hear from Donald Trump.
Right, that's the thing. Like, I'm wondering, maybe it's not the best place for pages to grow, but a group. If you're on Truth Social, Minnesota Patriots for Trump.
There you go. Watch this thing explode. Jesse's make
Probably
Jesse's day.
will. Jesse's gonna have like tons of following. We have Tucker saying, because someone odd one mentioned that none of Trump's opponents are saying they would pardon him if elected, except Ramaswamy. And
Great point.
Perry
Tucker is
Johnson.
for
Perry
Trump
Johnson
Vivek.
did?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was
Oh,
first.
really?
Yeah, he was first to do it.
All right.
Oh, you said that last time actually.
Yeah.
But Tucker and a couple other people on the last live said Trump Vivek 2024.
I don't mind Vivek. So far, so good. So I haven't been disappointed with him yet, and he's a really smart guy. So
Maybe that's what Vivek was doing all along.
maybe. Think Vivek plays 4D chess?
Clearly.
He's got some sort of long game. There has to be. Like, there's no way that he thinks he's going to win. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone other than DeSantis thinks they're going to win this one.
Right.
I've never seen such a lopsided thing for a non-incumbent before. One last comment here, and then we got to sign off.
One last by Dover Dan. I like this one. He says, people think they're going to get the perfect candidate. It will never happen.
Great point.
True.
Great
Yeah,
point.
it is a
yeah.
great point.
Very true. I like to be like as pure as possible. You know, obviously Ron Paul had faults. We're all human. We have faults, but you know, he was very intellectually pure from our standpoint. But you know, once again, couldn't find a suit that fit him, and just was, you know, at a point where he was just so old that he didn't come across as that appealing to the masses, although certainly to us that liked him. So yeah, you're just never going to find the perfect candidate. So that's a great point. That's a good way to end this thing. Rhinos are the problem, though. That is
Yep.
for sure. We got a real big rhino problem. We'll keep you updated on this story here with Sara and her son Walkie. That was pretty funny when she said that. Walker, as he's known. And thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Take care.